Hello, world! I'm back! My voice is back. The jungle was rocking. It was gone. It's back. I'm back. It's a great freaking day to be a Bengal fan. Possibly a Reds fan. We got Cam Miller tonight. We got Bengal Dad. We got Cincy James. We got Greg freaking Luther down there. How we doing? How we doing?
Awesome. Let's do this.
Fan freaking tastic.
Splendid, gentlemen. Splendid.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight on Rally Round the Natty. It's a great day. We got great stories, great stuff to show you. But as always, we got to get through the people that pay the bills. First and foremost, we are a proud sponsor with Betfred Sportsbook. Gambling's coming to Ohio. It's going to be here in January. It's right around the corner. Santa's going to slide his happy ass down the chimney, and bam, we can gamble. It's going to be the best Christmas present ever. Betfred Sportsbook. Must be 21 or over. Get pre-registered now with our link scrolling across the bottom. BetfredSports.com/Ohio/Bengals12. Get pre-registered now. James, I know you like to tell us about the Kentucky voters and or bettors. They're voters too. They
voters?
Vote.
No, I'm out on the voters. No, I'm not touching that.
Tell me how it works if you're just across the river in Covington.
All right. So the good thing is you do not have to be a resident of Ohio in order to take advantage of this. All you have to do is make sure that you place that bet when you're in Ohio. That's it. You can withdraw or you can add cash into your account from wherever you want. Doesn't matter. But all you got to do is make sure when you go up to that Bills-Bengals game, place your bet when you're there. And then as soon as you win that money, because we're going to win, you go back, cash out.
And I'm not going to lie. If you bet and you use our code, we get a little bit of cash, but we don't keep it. We don't keep it. I promise. It goes back to you guys in the form of the hoodies and the cups and the gifts and the Skyline gift cards and like the jersey that Meg won the other day. It all goes to that stuff. I don't keep a dime of it. I don't care to. I'm poor and I'm happy being poor. It is what it is. But we do have another sponsor, Brimminghorn Meadery. For those of you that don't know what mead is, because I didn't about 12 months ago, mead is kind of like honey wine. It's very sweet. It is a 21 and up drink. But if you use our code HOODAY9, you can get 15% off an order of 2 bottles. That helps you cover shipping. It is coming from our wonderful friends at Brimminghorn out in Delaware. It does take a little bit of time to get here, but I promise you the stuff's worth it. I've had it at tailgates. I've had it at Super Bowl parties. I've had it everywhere. You just have it in places where you can drink responsibly. Always take care of yourself and have a great time. With that being said, it's time to get into the show. Mr. Miller, how are we doing?
I am fan freaking tastic. How are you gentlemen doing?
Awesome.
Great.
Great. So you recently have been working and released a if I use the wrong terminology, please blast me. Short film, documentary, where would you kind of put it?
You could go with both that, a short film documentary or a short doc, if you will.
All right, short doc called Riverfront Remembered. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because it's beautiful. It's a tearjerker.
Well, thank you. I first of all, I work as an independent filmmaker, so I get to play in a bunch of different worlds, but in a previous life, I was a full-time employee of the Reds Hall of Fame. And I used to do their videos kind of on the side that paid me a little extra to do their films. But I started Cam Miller Films in 2007, left the Reds, started working my way, getting some clients. And of course, when your main client is the Cincinnati Reds, it's a big, you get other clients that way, the other companies start calling. So I was very fortunate to have them in my back pocket, and I kept the relationship going. So I've done, I want to say I'm in the 80 films, I think 79, 80 around there.
Wow.
For the, the Hall of Fame and for the Reds and the scoreboard, all those types of things. But I'm always doing something every year. There's a theme, or we got the Latin American exhibit was this year. So I was doing that. And we had talked about doing this film called Finley and Western, which was going to be a massive project on the Crosley Field site. Not just the Crosley Field, but all of the baseball that was played there before Crosley Field. You had League Park 1, you had League Park 2, you had Palace of the Fans. So those grounds are sacred. And 1884 to 1970. So baseball was played in that corner. So we were going to do this massive project. And then we decided to take a turn and to do Riverfront because it's been 20 years this month since it was, imploded, destroyed. So we thought, well, let's capitalize on this anniversary and go ahead and put this film together. I'd been working on it for a while, knowing that down the road, but it kind of got pushed up on the ladder there, so to speak. And we started working on it, and I was, it was just an amazing experience to finish. And I didn't think I was going to finish it. I did. And the original cut was 4 hours, around 4 hours.
I want to see that one.
Yeah, the director's cut. As people were saying, they got to put the director's cut out there. I eventually will put that out. It's massive, but you have to be a dedicated fan to sit and watch Ken Burns-esque 4 hours of, Riverfront, one stadium, right? But it was a fantastic experience, and I'm so glad that the feedback's been so positive. What a great journey it's been.
All right. Well, we actually have one of your trailers saved and potted up. If you don't mind, if we give it a play.
Absolutely, sure.
A second here, and here's a little snippet of it. All right.
That is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm telling you that thing when you did the reverse of the stadium where it was unimploding, the first 2 or 3 times I saw it, I couldn't stop the tears from streaming.
Yeah, that was a tough one because I took film footage, obviously, of the now, and then kind of obviously took and rotoscoped it out and put it back in. And then originally the plan was just to put it in there and then just let it kind of sit there. But then I thought, what if I reverse this footage and instead of it being imploded, it's going to come back to life. So for the next half hour, you're going to see, the memories of Riverfront. So it kind of worked out great. It was one of the first shots I did. And that's when I was like, okay, I think I got something here. This might work.
The combination of that and the music.
Yeah, the music, I was just going to say, every time I hear it, it's just like I'm taken back to that. I also write my own music and perform my own music. I scored this soundtrack and I'm lucky enough to have friends that play stringed instruments, cellos, violas, and it's through a college, and they get credit for doing it. So I didn't have to pay. They got credit. So I can send them the score, and then I'm good friends with the conductor, and he recorded it, sent it back to me, and then I just kind of added it to where I needed it to fit, and it worked out great. But yeah, that's an original composition. So another benefit of being able to do that kind of thing is I don't have to pay the rights to anybody to do it. I can do it myself.
Well, those were the only 2 questions I had because I wanted to know how you did the where it looked like it was overlaid. Because I was like, well, the Great American Insurance Building was not there.
Yeah,
it was down, and I was going to ask where the music came from. So, well,
I got you in at the 9-minute mark, right? We're good.
Oh yeah,
We'll see you later. No.
Well, obviously, I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
You had mentioned a little bit earlier that it took quite some time to put the whole thing together, and you weren't quite sure at periods of time if you were going to finish or not. What was going on where you thought maybe you wouldn't finish? What were some of the hurdles?
Well, the first thing was we were really up against the clock, and it kept getting postponed, and we were trying to release it on June the 30th, which was the anniversary of it, Riverfront being open in 1970, June 30th, 1970. and that was going to get pushed back. But the other thing that happened was my father passed away on June 30th, 2022. I had just done an interview with Lance McAllister on the radio, and I was in the halfway done with the film, and I went on there and says, yeah, the film's almost done. We're going to premiere it here soon. And my mother and father, who lived in Michigan, were listening to that. So they were listening to Lance McAllister. I got an email, hey, good job on the show. And then my dad went into the bedroom to turn on the Reds-Cubs game and passed away. So he got to hear me on the radio talk about his beloved Riverfront before. It was just this serendipitous thing, just the alignment of the baseball gods, I guess, so that he got to hear me talk about. I didn't get to talk to him, but he got to hear me through the power of radio and the internet, right? And so it was tough to try to get through that because I was halfway done, and I'm like, how do I finish this? Like, I just don't. I have all of this business, the business side of a death in the family, the emotional side of a death in the family, and having to deal with all of that. And then, wait a minute, I have to finish this. I have to finish it for him. I have to dedicate it to him because he's the one that took me to the World Series in 1975. He's the one that took me in the 78 and the 80s and then in the 90s and going back. So we've been to lots of games. So having him kind of guiding me, right, to finish the film is how it got finished. Because I don't know if I could have done it. And the support of, friends and family being able to say, hey, keep plugging. But it was definitely a labor of love. And it got finished on time. And we had the premiere in September on what would have been his birthday. So it worked out fantastic. Sold out. That it was an amazing event. We had to pull chairs out so people could sit down. There was so many people in the theater. It was just a phenomenal event, and I'm glad that it got finished, and I'm glad that people have had such a great experience with it.
Well, we're very happy you finished it.
Thank you.
I wasn't expecting that. That hurt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it was really a struggle, but. And everybody's like, you have to do it. Like, you can't postpone this, right? You have to finish this film for him. Like, you have to. And that's when I got that motivation. And it's just like, okay, I've got to do this. And all the positive messages I received. And, of course, at the same time, my mom is sending me things that used to be his in the mail. Like, here's a piece of Riverfront turf. Here's some programs. So it's like I'm getting all of this research material from my father who had just passed. So it was just one of the hardest film I've had to make, but also one of the most fun that I've had to make because I got to relive some of those moments.
So, and speaking of those moments, what are some of your fondest memories as a kid with Riverfront Stadium?
Wow. I wish I could say it was a 75 series, but I was just barely, one at the time. But I would say going to the ballpark on my bicycle for businessman specials with my friend, riding the 20 blocks in the heat of the summer, picking up a pack of baseball cards, going down there, sitting up in the cheap red seats, and just experiencing a baseball game. I wasn't there for anything else but to watch my favorite players and my favorite team. And the great thing about all of those times that I did that, what it was? It wasn't, I don't remember the score. I don't remember who won. I remember little moments like Eric Davis hit a home run. I remember the journey to and fro. I remember the announcers and the scoreboard animations. It was a ballpark built as a function. It was a functionable ballpark. It wasn't there with bells and whistles. You went there to watch a baseball game. It was a perfect stadium for that. I know it was a dump. I understand. But it was our dump. And it wasn't designed to be pretty. It was designed for a purpose. Win baseball, all this, the symmetrical, everything aligned. There was no little nooks and crannies. It was a perfect setup. And I will never forget going there in the heat of the summer and the cold in the spring and the fall. Just a magical place.
I get made fun of because I love the cookie cutter stadiums.
Oh, it was
How
fantastic.
symmetrical they were.
Yeah.
It made my OCD happy. I was like, this is the way it's supposed to be. Looks good.
Right.
That was our piece of Americana.
Yeah, it really was.
You and I aren't too far apart in age. You're probably 8 to 10 years younger than I am. I would assume, but yeah, the memories just gush when I watch that film. And
yeah,
I just think of the times with. See, I'm getting choked up. Somebody else at this point. No, I think about the times with my dad, and
yeah. it's such a great place, right? Like you'll never forget that. You will always you don't care if they were lost 100 games. You don't care. Like that moment will always be with you. Those moments of getting a scorebook and keeping score and getting a soda and listening to Paul Summercamp and the announcement and just the beauty of the game, which is it's gone away now. It's not like that anymore, and it never will be. We lived at the end of the baseball as the pastime that it used to be, and so thankful that I lived in that timeline. But there was something about Riverfront Stadium that just pulled you in. And we took it for granted, of course. We took it for granted, but there's like you said, those moments with your father, you will never forget that. That's with you forever.
Yeah, I just remember like the Sunday afternoon games. You'd always hit the Calliope music. They wouldn't play Calliope music any other time through the summer.
Yep.
But just on Sundays, you heard the Calliope.
Yep.
And it's just things like that. It just juices up all my senses. I can just remember that from all those years ago.
Right, and the sad thing about that is that kids that go to Great American Ballpark, and Great American Ballpark is fun, but kids today that go to Great American Ballpark, they're going to remember some advertisement, perhaps. They're going to remember, if they remember anything, or they'll remember what they were playing on their phone. They're not going to remember moments of the game unless something crazy happened, then they might remember like a triple play or a walk-off home run, but those are few and far between, right? You don't have those special things. It's just Great American Ballpark. It just doesn't have that charm. And I don't know what it is, because let me tell you something, and this goes for Bengal games as well. There was no place in the world louder than Riverfront Stadium when the fans were rocking, because it was circular. You didn't have anywhere for that sound to go. At Great American Ballpark, there's plenty of places for that sound to go out. I mean, it can be as loud, like for the Giants series and the playoffs and the All-Star and Frazier. That was fine, but there was something about Riverfront. You could feel it in your chest when the crowd was going crazy.
Cam, do you remember? Because I'm thinking about times that I went there with my son Santori, whatever we want to call him.
All like 3 times I got to go.
Yeah. Do you remember when they had that last weekend?
Right.
Before the end of the stadium.
Yeah, I remember this.
I think they were playing the Oakland A's, if I'm not mistaken, in that last series. I could be wrong about the team they were playing, but I'm not talking about when they had the All-Star softball game or whatever that was on a Sunday. They had a fireworks show, and I believe it was on the Saturday night.
Yeah. And
they shot a bottle rocket from home plate into left center field, and they had the 4192 play-by-play from Marty and Joe when he did that.
Yeah.
I will never forget that. My hair is standing up right now talking
right.
about it. That was an unbelievable capture of an unbelievable moment.
Right. Because I was talking about this with my son not that long ago about all of the great moments that Riverfront had. Like there was, thousands, right, over the years, thousands for a 32-year period, right? And Great American, Jay Bruce's home run, Homer Bailey's no-hitter, and that's 20 years coming up. Next year's the 20th anniversary of Great American. So I know it's the team and how good the Reds were, but even in the 80s when those teams were not that good, in the early 80s especially, before they got on that hot streak, and then of course in the 90s before they got junior, even you would have 40,000 people in there, because the Dodgers were in town, because you played them a lot, because they were your rivals in the division. There was something about it. Like it was just, you went there for the baseball game. It was just a magical time. And I can't get over the fact, I went through thousands of hours of footage, and it was tough to pick what to use and what not to use. And I chose not to use a lot because I didn't want to have overkill, because we know the whole story about the Big Red Machine. We know the story of the World Series and the championships and the All-Star game. So I tried to, encapsulate different things, but I kept going back to, I could just do 3 hours in a loop of crowd reactions and great moments. And that would have been, a highlight film of Riverfront. I didn't want to do that style. I wanted to do like a silent film, basically. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. There was something about that place, and it does make, the hair stand up on the back of your neck when you remember those times.
Well, one other memory, and then I'll get on to one last question that I've got. And I know I think you said in 75 you were 1 year old, and I think this moment happened. I can't remember if it was in 74 or 77. I know that's a wide range. Do you remember the millionth run in baseball history?
I do remember that. Yeah, that was
I
there
was,
was a big
I
deal.
was at that game.
Okay.
And Dave Concept, because they kept putting on the scoreboard,
Yeah.
999,996. And it wasn't as real time back then as it is now.
Right.
They didn't have the internet,
Right.
but they had all nines on the scoreboard, and Concepcion was up.
Yeah.
And he hit a home run to left center field.
Isn't that crazy?
And
Yeah.
he ran full speed around the bases, thinking that he had the millionth run. Everybody in the stadium was going crazy. They thought he had the millionth run. And
Yep.
2 or 3 minutes later, they flash up that Bob Watson scored the millionth run.
Yeah. Yep. I've actually worked on a very short film on that day that we haven't released yet. We're still working on when to put it out and kind of how to do it. But yeah, it's such a crazy story. It's almost like a 30 for 30 ESPN short, right? It's where except he was trying to get around the bases to score it. And it was just and then going back and forth. So juxtaposition between that and then Bob Rock, it was such a cool little short film we did. But yeah, hopefully that'll come out soon, actually. And you're going to get a kick out of that since you were there.
That's cool. The only other question I've got is I know you're working on a film you've talked about at the Jungle.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious what's the overview of that one? What's that look like? Because obviously it's not the construction of the stadium again. What is the whole thing behind the premise behind the Jungle?
Well, I decided once the Riverfront project got the green light, we decided to do a trilogy, right? So the first one belongs to Reds Hall of Fame, basically. So that was the launch it because that's where most people remember, the Big Red Machine and the Riverfront is known as the Reds. But it was a great place for the Bengals. I mean, it was unbelievable for the Bengals. I reached out and found out how the Jungle name got started, who the guys are that were responsible for that, the corporations that stole the idea from these college kids. And I kind of turned it into a short film to where you got to see, of course, the history of the Bengals. Because if it wasn't for the Bengals, first of all, let's backtrack. If it wasn't for the Bengals, Riverfront Stadium doesn't get built. If Paul Brown doesn't have a meeting in 1966 in downtown Cincinnati at a luncheon and convinces the city leaders to build this stadium, he'll bring an NFL team. It doesn't happen. You end up out in Blue Ash. You end up at Kings Island. Who knows what happens? Or they move to San Diego or New York, like was the talk. The Reds were going to move unless they got a stadium. Paul Brown comes in and says, I'll put an NFL team if you build this Riverfront ballpark. Well, that's all it took. Riverfront gets built. Fast, and of course, some good teams in the 70s, of course, in the 80s, Super Bowl, that run. But it wasn't until there wasn't a home field advantage really until the Jungle starts in 88, right? That's when that place became, the 12th man. So I decided to kind of take that angle, how the Jungle started, right? So the first film's Riverfront Remembered, the Reds. The second film in the trilogy is Riverfront the Jungle, the story of how the Jungle came to be. And then the third of the Riverfront trilogy is the shows. So I'm going to focus on some behind-the-scenes stories of Paul McCartney coming here, the Rolling Stones, the Cool Jazz Festival, the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. Just kind of some behind-the-scenes cool little anecdotes about how it was actually a good place to watch a show because there wasn't a bad seat in the house to watch a concert. And you could really hear very well when they were on the field. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now. The Jungle will be done. It might not be till early next year. We're actually working on trying to figure out the best venue for it, but it's coming.
Cool. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I've got a question. How close, or do you know how close were they to deciding on one of the two other shapes of the stadium, the dome or the horseshoe?
It really didn't get that close. I know that Bill DeWitt really wanted, the owner of the Reds at the time, first of all, he wanted to go in Blue Ash. He was very, very, very for the Blue Ash site. He wanted to have a park in the suburbs because he figured that's where the money was going to be at. Didn't want to go down into the inner city Riverfront. Nah, that wasn't his thing. He wanted to get out, plenty of parking. That's where the malls were being built. That's where people were living. But he was very for the horseshoe, not so much the dome. There was a lot of there was actually a design where it was going to be almost like a retractable from the center out. It would like an eye lens, like close, open, close. And of course, the technology didn't really exist at that time for that, but the idea was there. But yeah, it didn't really get that far. It wasn't something that they took very seriously. They was just kind of like feeling their way through, how could we do this? How could we do this? But can you imagine if it was a dome? How that would have changed things.
Oh my gosh. No.
I know. It would have been like Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit. It would have basically been the same thing.
Yeah, Cam. No, it's interesting because I work in Blue Ash, University of County Blue Ash College.
Okay.
That's not well. Actually, that's not really my question. Just out of curiosity, quickly, was it? Do you know where in Blue Ash exactly it was going to be built?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember. I saw like the area. I'm not sure where. It might have been close to the airport, I want to say. And I know that Kings Island too, which became Kings Island, that was also high up on the list. But yeah, Blue Ash was really what the Reds wanted. The Reds were very, very, very determined to get there. But once Paul Brown came in and says, yeah, the Riverfront, Cincinnati couldn't sign those papers fast enough.
So my main question is, like you said, there was a possibility of them moving. Do you know what cities in general really were trying to get the Reds, out of curiosity?
There was a lot of rumors, and of course, newspaper clippings and stories back then. You kind of take it with a grain of salt. But San Diego and New York, so the Mets, before the Mets were the Mets, right? Those two were very, very close, and I would say that the New York Mets was probably the closest it came. I think Pal Crosley Jr. Was very, very close to going there because it was a lot of money. The New York market.
Oh, yeah.
So we almost had the New York Reds. San Diego was more of a pipe dream. I don't think that was. It was maybe, but New York, that was a real. It was possible, and because of 75 going through there, right? He saw the writing on the wall. Crosley wasn't. He was a smart man. He saw that 75 was going to go through there. It was gonna cut out a lot of the development ideas he had. Parking was just non-existent, and of course, with the automobile being all the rage in the 50s and 60s, it was obviously you needed places to park. And the city, they weren't budging. They tore down some buildings and they gave him some parking. If you watch highlights of the 61 World Series, you look out in the outfield and you see, construction equipment. It's just awful because that's where 75 was going. But I would say the New York Mets, it was very, 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 very close to being the New York Reds.
Oh, goodness.
Can you imagine?
No.
Verlander was almost a Red, is what you're telling me.
Is that exactly? That's the way you got to look at it. That's the way you got to look at it. I like that. Positive.
Well, I've got Joe Nuxall up here. I've got Joe Nuxall right here. Bobblehead.
Nice.
He was kind of a family friend growing up. Him and my grandparents built their houses together on the same street.
Oh, wow.
At the same time. So they were 3 houses up from my grandparents. So they were, they got to be real close with Joe and Donzetta. But I say that because towards the beginning, you had Nuxall saying farewell to the ballpark. And I'm not going to lie, that choked me up a lot.
Imagine listening to that. Probably, I had it on a loop. I probably listened to that, a couple hundred times in the editing. And getting it right, like where do I cut it? How do I keep it? That moment when and this was one of the first things I did after the loop where I reversed the footage. The other thing was the audio for Nuxall because I knew that clip. It stuck in the back of my mind all these years, and I knew that I had to use it somewhere. And the fact that he says they might tear down this place and it could become a parking garage. How unbelievable was it that he knew it was going to be a parking garage because that's what it is today. And they can tear it down, but they're not going to tear down the memories, right? The memories are always going to be there. So when I go back there, even today, like I spent a lot of time, I wrote most of the script sitting in the parking garage by home plate. I'm not a ghost kind of guy. I don't believe in, the supernatural, so to speak. But there was something about sitting in that spot and feeling the energy of being at the home plate where Riverfront is and walking over to where Pete stood when he got the ovation for his hit, and then going over to where Joe Morgan used to play, and Barry Larkin and Chris Sabo and Pete Rose and Johnny Bench and Tony Perez, and going to all these places and going out to where Ken Griffey Jr. for a short time at Riverfront and Eric Davis, walking around there and getting ideas for the film, and then hearing Nuxall and Marty as a soundtrack in my head. It was just, that was an incredible thing. I've never done a film like that where I actually went to the location and was able to kind of soak things in. Of course, I'm doing that now with my Crosley film, but I have a personal relationship with Riverfront. Not much Crosley. I'm too young for that, but it was definitely a magical experience. I'm not going to lie. It was, and the echoing in there when I had the radio, and you could hear, like I had the tape player where I could listen to Marty and Joe on the spot, listening, getting ideas for the film. It was just surreal. It really was.
So towards the beginning, what made you think to make it like you're entering the stadium almost? Like what was going through your mind when you're like, okay, this is how the film has to start?
I first thought that it was going to be a straightforward, this is the history of Riverfront. It was built in 1970. It was torn down 2002, and it was going to be talking heads because I had access to. Tom Browning was going to say a few words and about it. But as I started to write it out, I realized we already know this stuff. Tom Browning, we know, Perfect Game. We know about the hit. We know about these moments. But what about the stadium as the main character? So when I thought that, when that clicked in my head that I wanted it to be the stadium as character number one, the idea started flowing. And then I said, wait a minute, this could be, I don't want a bunch of talking heads, blah, 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 blah. I can tell the story like they used to tell the story at Riverfront. How did they tell the story? What was going on? The scoreboard told you, right? Messages on the scoreboard, animations, advertisements, what was going on. They put you in, the vibe that you needed to be in at the stadium. It was that magical scoreboard up there that nobody forgets. If you went to Riverfront Stadium, you know that scoreboard. So I said, this is a silent film, right? It's going to be like the text comes up and then it cuts to some footage. The text comes up, it cuts to some footage. So then I went a step further and thought, why isn't it like you're being in a time machine, almost Field of Dreams-esque, like in the shot in the film where yes, that's me, by the way, stepping onto the turf. That's actual turf from Riverfront. I'm stepping onto it. And I kind of Field of Dreams-esque, right, where Doc, Moonlight Graham goes back to Doc.
Yeah.
I step on it, and then I become a Reds player. Those pants belonged to J.J. Hoover. They were about 85 sizes too big, but I strapped them on, bought some red stirrups, had some 70s black shoes, and that kind of set the tone. It was like you were going into Riverfront Stadium in 1987, 30 minutes before first pitch, and then they show a documentary on the Jumbotron. That's the feeling I wanted you to get. You walk in, you're like, oh, okay, there's this whole history of the stadium. I think I'll watch this before first pitch. That's kind of the vibe I wanted to give you.
Cam, I got a question to ask you. So, which team was your favorite team more, the Big Red Machine era or the Nasty Boys 1990s team?
I would have to say the 1990 team because I was prime teenage, cutting clippings out. I lived in South Carolina in 1990. We had moved away. My dad got transferred. He's a robotic engineer for Cincinnati Millicron. And their plant got transferred to South Carolina where he was in charge of it. So I was devastated, right? I moved to South Carolina, 1990. The Reds, of course, are going to the World Series. Of course they are when I move, right? But I follow them around. Again, you were talking about no internet, right? In order to follow them, because it wasn't like I was lucky when they were on Sunday Night Baseball. That's when I got to see them. I would listen to them on the radio. You could barely hear it. You could pick them up at nighttime. But you'd have to wait for the scoreboard ticker on ESPN to see what was going on. And on top of that, my mother and father subscribed to the Cincinnati Post and got it mailed to us. So 2 days after all of these events would happen, it was like living in the 1800s for crying out loud. 2 days after this would happen, I would wait for the Wells Fargo wagon to come down the street and throw my newspaper onto my porch. And then I would get all these clippings and I kept a scrapbook. That's how I think that made me closer to the team. Whereas if I was daily on it, you just kind of get lost. But the fact that I was craving any news, and I would get something like Ron Oster shaves his head. Let me see, turn to page 12, and you're getting this whole thing about it was just that was the best experience because I had to have patience. I had to learn how to wait for the paper to come to get the inside scoop. And of course, I had Reds Reporter come in the mail. It was just a different way of doing it. And I loved that team because of that fact, because of the fact that I could, kind of fall in love with them in a long distance way, a long distance relationship.
It's funny you bring that stuff up. There was no internet back in the day. So when I was a kid, when I was in the 7th grade, 1999 or 2000, Ken Griffey Jr.'s name got brought up every single day at school. I would try to get on the leader seat. Did we get Griffey? Did we get Griffey?
Yeah.
Like every single day when I got home, I would actually wait for the newspaper to come.
Oh, yeah.
Every single day to see what happened. And you know what? It was kind of fun back in the day, you know? But now it's like, you know, you hold your phone up. Oh, here it is right here.
Yeah, you know it instantly. And I love the internet. It's the greatest tool. Believe me, it's an educational tool for me in my line of work.
Oh, yeah.
If it wasn't for that, who knows how I would actually have to go to a library. Who does that? But it was, there's something to be said about the fact that you can go, I could go back and look at my scrapbook and see all of the box scores that I kept. And Baseball Weekly came out, and I started to get all those every week for $1 at the drugstore, and I'd get it. And making the effort to find baseball scores where now it's kind of in your face and you don't have to put any work in. So like anything else, if you don't have to work at it, you don't appreciate it as much, right? And I think that also applies to baseball. Now, for anything really, but really baseball, because it's a numbers thing, right? You don't have to be a genius at math, but you want to know who's the team batting average leader. How good's this? How good's that? Now it's become too much of the numbers. It's constantly shoved in your face, and you can't just let the game be the game. You can't just let it be what it is. It's a chess match, right? And I do think that it's a shame, but I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad I lived in the timeline where, you know, we get to explore these great pieces of our past.
Yeah, you mentioned that about the newspaper, Greg, and Cam, you'll remember this. The Sunday Enquirer was the only paper that you could get to see all the league leaders, and not just the league leaders.
Once a week.
It would show like the top 200 hitters.
Yeah.
In baseball, you'd have a whole column of a page,
right?
Who had the batting average, the home run, the RBIs, and it was just so cool because they would always bold out the Reds players.
Yeah,
and you want to see where the Reds players ranked among everybody in baseball.
Right.
I used to love that.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great time. Like that's the cool thing about baseball. Like those types of things that we're never going to get back. And is that good or bad? I don't know, because I mean, yeah, get off my lawn. I get it. I understand. But there's something about that, because it was worth that Sunday opening up that paper and seeing, because not only that, but the sports section was bigger. So you got more Reds little side stories, you got more blurbs, more little things, features to find out what was going on inside the locker room. I was always so fascinated by that stuff.
Who says you can't be romantic about baseball?
I'm telling you.
I could talk about this all day. I wouldn't be doing any talking. I'd just be listening to you talk.
I talk way too much. I'm going to be giving a lecture in the spring. I'm still working on the details at the American Sign Museum.
Yeah. And
it's going to be obviously about signs. I can't talk about too much yet because we're still working it out. But they gave me 45 minutes to do so, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let you know. You have to cut me off. You have to. If I start going on about things, you're going to have to give me a hard get off the stage, because exactly. Cut. The music starts playing. Get him off the da 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 da. No, I got to go, because I will talk about that stuff until I can't. Because I get to wake up every day, and I say this all the time. I get to wake up every day and create. My job is an artist. I get to create. I get paid to create, and I get to live in the world of baseball whenever I want to. And it's such a magical thing that I never take for granted, ever.
Cam, were you at Reds Fest over the weekend?
I was on Saturday. I actually stayed a little longer than I thought I was going to. I made the rounds and tried to catch up with everybody that I haven't seen. First person I ran to was Danny Graves. I haven't seen him in forever, and congratulated him on his Hall of Fame induction and told him I promise I didn't stuff the ballot box. He was with his son. We had a moment. I got to talk to Chris Welsh. I was texting Jim Day and some of the other guys. I didn't get the chance because there's so much going on. It's just impossible to try to catch up with everybody. But, yeah, it was a great time. I had a really good time at Reds Fest.
Yeah, I got to meet Scott Williamson. He was signing somewhere. There was an old picture. I can't find it. But in 1999, when I was 13, I got my picture taken with Scott Williamson. Ooh. So when I find that, I'm definitely posting it on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. That has to be your profile picture for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I met you back in 1999 when I was 13. He's like, yeah, that was some time ago. Really nice guy, Scott Williamson was. But my uncle's a diehard Reds fan. I got to if you ever come back to the show, I got to get my uncle on here, because you and him could probably talk for hours. I would whenever my uncle, Reds. My uncle just loved talking stories about going to Reds games and all. But, Reds Fest, like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go, but you go there, it just brings back these cool memories of history. It is just so fascinating to watch that you never get tired of.
Right.
Cam,
right.
Cam,
It is really neat.
If you have any pull with the Reds and their uniform choices, I believe it was the 99 uniform that had the sleeveless and the black sleeves under it.
That's
Best
correct.
uniform the Reds ever had, in my opinion, in the modern era.
Yeah.
Best uniform ever.
Right, and you're not alone. You're not alone in that thinking. There's a lot of people that think that. Well, and the problem is, and I'll give you the reason why they haven't changed in so long, is that they paid for the font that they use. That's a custom font, and they paid big money for that. So that's tough for them to let go, because you're saying, oh, we have to give up the font that we paid for. I'm telling you, it's the thing. It really is a thing. That's the reason they haven't had a uniform change since 2006. That's the reason. Yeah, the font. They paid for that custom font, and they're not going to let that baby go. They'll run that till the end of time if they could. And trust me, I'm with you. I get the whole black sleeve thing. That's a very popular opinion. There's several uniforms, and I think they should do, when they had the throwback for the 150, which that's a whole other story, by the way, because the Reds aren't the oldest professional baseball team. They're not. It's false, but that's a whole other podcast. The whole 1869 thing, please, can we not do that anymore? Because it's fake advertising. But that being said, the uniforms, they could do throwback games and have uniforms that are different. Fans love that stuff. They absolutely love that stuff. And it gives grandparents and dads and great-grandparents, oh, that's the uniform they wore when I was a kid. So you get to share that knowledge with kids, and they get to see something different. But let's throw in another camouflage uniform or something like that, because that's what we're trying to do, is we're going out on a deer hunt. I never will understand it. I will never get it.
I do want to use this question from Crypt, and then we'll segue into some Bengal talk here, if you don't mind. And I
Sure,
know
absolutely.
we
absolutely.
could probably all keep going on about the Reds for a while. But Crypt says, any stories of Marge Schott's dog shitting all over Riverfront Field like the Bengals player said?
It happened several times. You have no idea. There are so many Marge stories. One of the greatest discoveries I ever had about Marge Schott was when I worked full-time for the Reds, we got to go down into the storage unit where a lot of the stuff was kept, right? So we would go down there and pick stuff up to bring up to the Hall of Fame to display. Well, there was an estate sale for Marge Schott, and we ended up with a bunch of items. And it was one of those things where you just get a bunch of Marge's stuff and you go through it later. And we were going through it, and we found these cassette tapes of when Pete was getting ready to break his record. Every band in a 50-mile radius was writing a song about Pete Rose and sending it to Marge. So we got the tape of these rock and roll bands playing the Pete song that they wrote to get Marge's ears. I don't know if there was a contest or something. There was something to it. And then you get the tape of her responses. And let me tell you something, boys. That was some humor. I could listen to 12 hours of that stuff, and you could put that on Netflix and make that a Last Dance-esque documentary. I would watch that, listen to that all day long, because it was her critique of those bands and why they weren't going to make the big, like she was a record executive or something. It was hilarious. So many stories of the stuff that she did, and 99% of them are true. They are. They are.
The uncensored Marge Schott tapes.
Oh, can you imagine?
Rated R.
Yes.
All right, so we'll use that to segue, because we do have a pretty important game this week. Cam, you said you're a pretty diehard fan.
Big time.
So we like to start off. It's Bengals-Browns week. It's Battle of Ohio. For whatever reason, there's a mental block, and the Bengals are struggling with the Brownies. We'll figure it out. We got Joey B. What are the keys to victory? Start it off, Bengal Dad.
Keys to victory: do not have a turnover on the first drive, as they have in the last two games against the Browns. Don't turn 102-yard pick six, and don't have a deflected pass off of T. Higgins. Let's finish off the first drive. Let's get the lead. Let's make them come back.
Well, let's go counterclockwise here, at least on my screen. Cam?
I have 3 words for you: adjustments, adjustments, adjustments. Football is a game of adjustments. So when you see that they're doing something and they've been very successful at doing something to you since I think the 1950s, it feels like they've hit our number. It's time to adjust. And I think that the Bengals have come a long way in the recent weeks to where they've it's clicked. So there's that, number one. Number two, they are not going to lose to the Browns. It's a a pride thing. They realize not so much the Battle of Ohio, because I think that's long gone now. We don't have that as much as we used to. Yeah, but there's something about, hey, they beat us. They kicked our tail. It's revenge time. And I think that talk about two franchises going in two different directions. So now's the time to don't get anybody hurt, play it smart, adjust, win the game.
Gregory.
Stop Nick Chubb. Don't let him get the best of you. Do not let him contain you all game. And also, this guy apparently does more bad about everybody else. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Bill Hall. Jesus.
Not Bill Hall.
Every time he plays, just contain him. You remember who Bill Hall was, Cam?
Bill Hall, the Brewer,
Yes.
Milwaukee Brewers Reds killer.
Yeah.
That's why I refer to Donovan Peoples-Jones as. Does terrible against everybody else, but he does great against us. But if we can just contain him, but mainly just Nick Chubb, we got this game.
So you want to conceal the Chubb, is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a film I did in 1980. I don't want to talk about it.
Cincy James.
First off, Greg almost got kicked off the show by saying Bill Hall. So, bring that up. No, my key to the game has to do with this hat. Ted Karras, offensive line, Cincy hat. It's got to do with that. If we can kind of neutralize Myles Garrett, keep him away from Joe Burrow, I think we got a really good shot. And there's all kinds of stats out there. Santori knows them probably better than any of us out on here, that the Bengals are doing really well keeping the pressure away from Joe Burrow. That's a combination Joe and the line, but they're doing a lot better. So that's my key.
I'm going to say something that might sound blasphemous coming from me. And Cam, I know we haven't had too much interaction.
Run the ball.
I'm very, very new wave.
Yeah, he's going to say it. He's going to say it.
Run the fucking ball. Cleveland has a damn hard time stopping the run, and for whatever reason, it's clicking with the Bengals right now.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it for a staple of the offense. I think it should be the changeup to your fastball. But my God, if there's a time to just cut it loose and run it 40 times, it might be this game. Truly. I mean, they're bottom of the league in yards per carry. They're bottom of the league in EPA on rush defense. They struggle immensely with the run game, and it's something that they just didn't do last time. When you run the ball, you shorten the game, you shorten extra possessions, you keep the clock on your side, you control things. There's a time for it, and I think it's now.
10 carries is what they had, right?
Yeah, 10.
Yeah.
Hey, Cam, I got a question. So it's clearly Pete Rose. He was a big star in Cincinnati. He was probably the biggest red star ever. My question to you is, do you see Joe Burrow eventually passing Pete Rose as the biggest star ever in Cincinnati sports?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's hard to say that only because Pete was from here. I know Joe's got the Ohio connection, but Pete was that's tough. It's possible. Now if Burrow breaks all of the records, which it's very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very possible. I could actually see that happening because of not only because of who they are, but because of the respected sports they play. Baseball is on the downturn when it comes to fandom, engagement. NFL, especially Cincinnati Bengals football, is on the upswing. Man, I would not bet against that. That's very, very possible.
If Burrow gets a ring and maybe you throw in an MVP or two, that'll be all she wrote.
Yeah.
All right. So, kind of segueing from keys to victory, we like to do a sleeper player of the week. Who do you think is going to pop off in this one? We'll start with Greg.
Ooh, start with me. You know what? He's been a sleeper. You know what? I think he's been the most underrated player in the defense. So he really hasn't been a sleeper, but I think he's still going to get better. I'm going to go Jermaine Pratt. He's just been He's just been dominating. I still think he's not done. I think Jermaine Pratt's going to show up again this game.
Okay. Cam, we'll go that way. Clockwise this time.
I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd. I think every year Tyler Boyd has that one game where he's like just unstoppable. Like you just never, but you never know what it's going to be. And it obviously depends on what the matchups are, what Cleveland brings. But I got a feeling like he's getting better and better and better. They're using him a little bit more and more. It's like I see Cleveland trying to stop T, trying to stop Jamar, and I just see Tyler having a big game. I mean, I could see him going for 120 yards and a couple of TDs. It would not surprise me.
You took mine.
Oh,
We
can share.
That's awesome, though.
You got two people to think of another one. Bengal Dad.
I'm going to go with somebody you haven't heard a whole lot about so far this year, even though he is very, very well respected, and that's Logan Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Logan Wilson, because the one of the keys is to stop Chubb. I think Logan Wilson's going to have one of those double-digit tackle games. He's going to be a force in the middle with the help of having Reader in front of him. I think Logan Wilson's going to shine this week.
I think it's fair. I mean, he played a little off last week, but he's also sick. So, another week. Obviously, I think the game plan is probably going to be stop Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if he's a little bit more aggressive filling those lanes. I'm going to go Von Bell. This seems like one of those games where the enforcer comes out, like the Monday Night Football game a few years ago where he annihilated Juju. Obviously, there's someone coming to town in this game that I don't think most people in America are fond of right now. I'm not saying he's going to lay him out, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially with the way the last game went in the secondary, if they play him up in the box a little bit, and he might set a tone for somebody. It would not surprise me.
Yeah.
All right. Since Cam took mine, I have to think of another one.
Okay, fine. I changed mine. Boomer Esiason. He is going to. You're not going to believe. No way. James Brooks. He's going to go for 150 yards.
I'm going to go Trey Hendrickson. I'm going to go Trey Hendrickson because of part of what Santori said. I think he's going to get there, and I think he's going to lay that guy on the turf.
Right. All right. Well, we've got an exciting road ahead of us. And what we've got is the playoff race here. Dad, I know you had a hot take you wanted to throw out there, which looking at this is a ridiculously hot take, but go for it.
I know it's a ridiculously hot take. I just have a feeling the Buffalo Bills are going to miss the playoffs. I look at their remaining schedule and I look at how they have played the last few weeks. They are nowhere near what their record says they are, and they may be in for about 3 losses, if not 4.
They lost Von Miller too.
Yeah, and now they've lost Von Miller. They already had a so-so defense, so the best player on defense, or one of the best, is now gone. I know that's a reach.
It's definitely a hot take.
That's a scorching take. That's not a hot take.
Yeah, they do not impress me as much as their record does. The team that I would be most concerned with on this list would be the New York Jets, because I think they found their quarterback. They've already had their defense. And this guy, I know he lit the Bengals up last year, Mike White, but I think he's got 2 games already this year at 350 plus. And he threw the game-winning touchdown that was dropped with 30 seconds to go to almost beat the Vikings. I think the Jets are a team to be concerned with.
I'll say this. I'm not sure if Mike White's the guy, but I think they believe he's the guy, and the team definitely rallied around it when they made the move. I think they were just so disenfranchised with Zach Wilson that it could have been anybody, and they'd have been like, that's our guy, let's go. But confidence is key, and for whatever reason, they're confident with Mike White. I know he's really just a backup quarterback, but they've got the defense, and if you've got an adequate enough game manager and you've got a defense, you can make some noise.
Remember, Nick Foles was a backup too.
Yeah.
I think Nick Foles is a little better than Mike White, but I'll digress on that.
Don't know.
How much time is Lamar Jackson going to miss? I know they're saying 1 to 3 weeks. You think he tries to come back after 1 week?
If he tries to come back early how his style of play is on a messed up knee, it's not going to go well.
No.
Yeah, that's the part of his body. The lower half of his body was key for him not to hurt. He could hurt his arm and still be effective. If he hurts his legs, he's just a average quarterback with no mobility.
I think a lot of people throw a lot of disrespect for him for a multitude of reasons. He's a solid passer. He's nothing crazy. He's not a great passer. I would say he's maybe above average. But I think a lot of people, when it comes to Lamar, just see the running ability and go, oh, he can't throw. And that's not necessarily fair. But he is probably a little bit more proficient as a passer as he is because of the threat of his legs, because
Correct.
you do have to watch out for that. If you
Right.
take that away,
You're going to play a different style of defense.
Yep.
yeah, I'm just going to sit back and say, beat me with your arm. And I don't, maybe he can. We've never really seen him had to do it before.
Well, if he can't run, they're going to defend him the way the Dolphins did last year and zero blitz the heck out of him.
Yep.
If he can't move, you already saw it. He can't handle the blitz. So if he can't get away from it,
Right.
I don't know.
Cam, how do you see the final 7 shaking out here? Based on what we're going through right now, where do you think everything ends up?
The Bills thing is very intriguing. I like that train of thought, just because the way ways things are trending. I that is a hot take, very hot to the touch. But I really think that the one thing that the Bengals have going for them, last year it was the surprise element, right? I mean, let's face it, last year was a mixed bag until they got hot at the right time.
Which
And what
was
are they doing this year? They're getting hot at the right time. Everything is clicking. And the difference being, been there, done that. They know what it takes. And now there is the school of thought that, well, now that they're, the hunted, right, it's a little bit different. I just think that they've got so many positives going for them right now as they this final stretch that I want to say they win out.
Mm-hmm.
I see them winning out. I see them being a 1 seed. I just think the confidence level is so high. I don't see a loss. I think that they are that, especially, and this is maybe a hot take, but I want to see more Pirine, less Mixon. I want to see more Pirine, less Mixon. And I think if you do that, you're a Super Bowl team. If you don't do that, because I think Mixon's running out of gas. It's unfortunate. I like him in certain situations, but Pirine is a beast, and he's getting a chance to shine. And why would you? It's just the defense is stellar, right? The special teams is a special team. It's what it is. It's not going to be too great. It's not going to be very bad. Just maintain, right? Don't make the big mistakes. And the offense is the best in football, right? They have the best offense in the National Football League. I say they win out, and I say they are number 1 seed, and I think that there's going to be a party on Fountain Square.
That's if we do win out, that means we will have beaten everybody else that's in the playoff field, plus the 8th person as well. So 7 out of the top 8, and we're the 8th, obviously.
Yeah.
That would be impressive.
It's tough. It's a tough challenge, but watching this team,
right.
It's just it clicked. It took a while, but it clicked.
The thing that's interesting with Buffalo, though, and I know that's a wicked hot take for them to miss, but if you look at the numbers to understand tie-breaking procedures here, there's a good to fair chance that they're not winning their division. There just is. I mean, they've got a 1-game lead with 5 to go, and Miami's a damn good team. Call it what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a 50-50 chance right now that the Bengals win their division, depending on what happens with Lamar and Baltimore in that last game of the year. They're tied. I would like to think it probably tips towards Cincinnati, but you never know. That's why we play. So let's say Baltimore and Miami win their division, and you've got Buffalo, Cincinnati, and a couple other teams as your wild card, right? If there's a 3-way tie, it comes down to conference record, which everybody's kind of tied at right now, and strength of schedule, which is really tied right now. There's an off chance if they lose the wrong couple games that they could just, on a technicality, not make it, even if they have 11 wins.
Yeah.
I hate to say it like that. I don't
Very
think
possible.
it's going to happen, but the math is there for it to happen. And until the math isn't there, especially with 5 games to go, I'm not going to take it out of consideration.
Well, do you see the Jets getting to 11 wins?
I don't know their schedule.
Because their next game is against the
Well,
Bills.
Bengal Dad has the schedule. You know, pump that one up for me, because that was the other graphic we have ready to rock and roll. We'll remove that one.
Is that it? Can you see it?
No. You got to stop presenting this one. Technical difficulties.
Technical. I'm not good at this.
Oh,
Let's
God.
try this. Let's try this.
The Chargers would have to win out, the Patriots would have to win out, and the Jets would have to win 4 of 5 in order to if the Bills got 11 wins, in order for that to actually happen.
Well, the Jets,
and I don't see that happening.
The just so you understand this graphic, you got the A and the H for away and home, but what I haven't read are games for the team listed down the left-hand side. So, for instance, the Bills at 9-3, 4 of their 5 games are difficult games, in my opinion. So that's what the point of the color is on here.
well, the Jets could win 4 of those. I'm not saying for sure, but they could. I don't think they're going to beat the Bills, but you never know. They should beat the Lions. They should beat the Jags. The Seahawks, I think, are still a fever dream. Dolphins, I don't know. They're division games.
No, they're going to have
these 3.
They're going to have to beat the Bills to catch the Bills.
Well, probably. Let's see. I mean, the Bills could definitely lose 3 more, for sure.
I just look at trends. The Bills aren't trending well, and nor are the Ravens.
Right.
Those 2 teams out of and frankly, what I saw of the Patriots lately, they're not trending very well either.
No, that's a whole lot of red.
Yeah, I think the Patriots and the Chargers might just stay where they're at. That might in itself make it difficult for the Bills to fall completely out, honestly, because there's 9 teams on that list. If the Patriots and Chargers don't get hot, the Bills can't. They could lose all the remaining games and still probably make the top 7. Yeah. I just don't think they're what they were.
And that's the one thing about football that's so great. I mean, in comparison to baseball, for instance, is that emotion and feeling matter. If in baseball, your pitcher is dominant, but your defense is terrible and your offense is terrible, you're probably going to lose, right? There's something about football to where, like what I say with the Bengals, they have a unbelievable wave right now of confidence. And it's because of leadership at the quarterback spot. And I look at the other quarterbacks on the schedule, and I'm like, nobody scares me. I look at the defenses, nobody scares me. I look at the receivers and the receiving core and the running back, nobody scares me. Like, I just don't see, if the Bengals even play above average, they might have a few miscues. They can afford to because they're just playing at such a high level. I just see them winning out. I really believe they can.
I think the difference in baseball and football is momentum.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Momentum's real in football. In baseball,
Absolutely.
they always say momentum's the next day's starting pitcher.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely correct.
Yeah, but Cam, like you look at the Chiefs game, the Bengals had so many other chances. They could have scored 40 points off of that.
Oh, I know.
Or like the chase penalty. We could have. The thing of it is, we barely beat the best team in the league when we didn't even play our best.
And we didn't even play the best. That's the scary part. I know. And think about those early losses, how it was a play here, a play there, losing by a couple points. It was so frustrating because you're like, this team is so much better than what that game indicated. And that's the great thing about football as well, is the parody of it, right? It really is the cliche of any given Sunday. It's so true anymore. Like, there's not a team. Remember back in the day, it was like the Bears were always good. The 49ers were always good. The Cowboys were always good. It's like you just knew that there were going to be 12 win teams, 13. It's like now you never know what's going to happen. The Packers, I didn't see that coming, right? It's unbelievable. And it's more exciting to me. Like when you can sit back on a Sunday and watch these games and absolutely have no idea who was going to win that game, which is why I think what a great time for Joe Burrow to be a Bengal, right?
Yeah.
This is the timeline that's perfectly suited for him.
We are blessed.
Yes.
You talk about that, and I just pulled up the Lions because I know they've played a little better here
A
lately.
little better. Yeah, a little better.
They started off 1-6, and they've won 4 of 5.
Right.
So
Momentum.
they're not an
And
easy.
the loss was a Buffalo game that was kind of all over the place.
Right.
Was that
right.
the Thanksgiving game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's they're no pushover either. So like exactly what you're talking about, Cam. It's that anybody can beat anybody on any day.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
This year, especially, it seems. I don't know. There's just something about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now, so I mean, we can do a couple game picks here, because we always like to do our game picks on Wednesday before the Thursday night rolls around, and we really try to focus on just the main ones that kind of impact us at this point. Because I mean, we can go pick the Texans game this week, but I don't think anybody really gives a shit at this point what they're doing.
Yeah.
Unless you're-
Somebody in Houston cares.
No, I don't care
One
about them.
person.
So, all right, we'll start with Bengal Dad. Bills and Jets.
I'm taking the Jets.
It's a 9.5 point spread for the Bills.
I'm absolutely taking the Jets.
Yeah.
You're high on the Jets, man.
They score a lot of points, and their defense is really good. They're another team I think that is beginning to click here. I know they just lost, but I think they're putting it together here late.
I still got to go with Bills. I think Josh Allen at 50% is still good enough to kick their ass. Cincy James.
Do they win by 10 or more? That's the question.
I didn't even think about the spread. I was just going money line. I'm going
Yeah,
Bills.
it's minus 9.5.
Still going Bills.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Jets. I'm
Okay.
taking the Jets.
Gregor.
As Fireman Ed said, J-E-T.
Yes, Jay.
Jets.
Gets.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Cam, who you got?
Jets by 11.
Jets by 11.
Jets by 11. I feel it.
Ooh,
Okay.
Wow.
All
I
right.
feel it.
all right.
My cat and all that.
I'm
All
the,
right.
I'm the only asshole taking the Bills. Okay. Who'd have thought the number one seed would be, whatever. Chiefs at home against the Broncos. I'm just going to start off and say Chiefs because
I don't care what their spread is.
That's
The Chiefs-
another minus 9.5 point spread.
The Chiefs are butthurt.
I don't care who the Chiefs are playing. I feel sorry for them. I think they're going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Broncos have the number one defense in the league.
I don't care right now.
It's,
Mahomes might put up a 500 burger on them.
of course, here's the other thing. They also have the worst offense in the league.
Yeah. All they got to do is score 10 points.
They're going on historically bad as an offense. So you're probably right. I'll take the Chiefs too. Yeah, that's it.
Greg,
Chiefs.
Cam.
Chiefs by 22.
All right.
Well, the next one's going to be what? Steelers by 33.
I'm
following the pattern here.
all right. Dad, Steelers at home hosting
Minus
the
2.5
Ravens.
Steelers.
Yeah,
Steelers are
are
minus
favorites.
2.5.
They're
Yes.
favorites.
Unbelievable.
Well,
I
they
think
can crawl
the
out of
Steelers-
a hole. They're kind of hot. People
I
don't
think
want
the
to talk
Steelers
about
are
it,
going
but
to
they are.
win. I think the Steelers will win that game. 2.5 is a little iffy, but sure, Steelers.
I hate spreads around 3 points when Justin Tucker's on the field because
Right.
it just messes everything up for me. People also don't want to talk about it, but Najee Harris is running a lot better than he has in his entire career.
Pickett's playing better.
Pickett's playing better. The line's blocking well. The defense is, they got Watt back. There's a off chance that the Steelers could win 4 of their final 5.
They could almost run it here. Yeah, they could almost
The
run it.
Steelers really have a favorable schedule, and I think they're getting hot. It wouldn't surprise me if they end up with a winning record. I'm going to go Steelers here.
I'm doing the same.
Plus, I want them to win.
Not that Huntley's a bad quarterback. I think he's serviceable. He was 27 of 32 taking over for Lamar. So obviously he's doing something right, but I don't know. I just don't see I don't see them putting up enough points. I'm going to take the Steelers too. And I hate that those words came out of my mouth.
Greg,
You know what?
I know you have trouble with these, Gregs, but you got to root for the right people here.
Well, buddy, there's a difference between rooting and thinking, and like you and Huntley did a great job. I'm gonna go Ravens.
All right. I mean, that's fair. Huntley's more than serviceable. I think people forget that. Cam?
Yeah, I'm going Steelers and 3.
Okay, I've lost the pattern now. We went from 11.
I'm throwing change ups in there. Those slurves, those sliders,
It's
knuckleballs.
No.
Okay. I think this next one we should all agree on, but who knows at this point? Cam might bust out Jags by 50. Titans at Jags. Bengal Dad.
Tennessee -4.
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Hennessy,
Jags by 1.
Jags.
There it is.
By 1.
Jags are a fake. They're a fake team. Jags.
Fake team. Fake team. What the hell does
J
that
A
mean?
G
They don't
S. Jags.
I'm going Jaguars, man. The Titans, they're falling apart. I'm sorry.
So I'm not super in tune with the Titans, but why did they fire their GM?
Hello.
I don't know.
He wasn't running hard enough, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe it was
I mean,
after
they win. To a
maybe it was
degree,
after
they
AJ
win.
Brown torched them, and they're like, "You got rid of him."
Yeah.
Maybe that was it.
All right. Bengals at home.
They're -6.
Browns.
The only thing that scares me about taking the Bengals is typically when they are minus a relatively big number, they struggle. But they are very, very hot. They have a reason to want to destroy the Browns. And I got to go Bengals.
Well, to what Cam said and what has seemingly just been a year of parallels between this year and last year, this was the week last year that Burrow got impeccably hot for about 5 straight games where he threw like 14 touchdowns in 4 games or whatever it was. This was the week that it started to happen last year. I think he had a run of like 4 or 5 straight games of 130 plus, and he ended that Baltimore game with like a 148 passer rating. If the parallels are parallels, the Browns might be in for a little bit of a shellacking this week. Give me the Bengals. I'm going to say they might win by 17. Seriously, they might really kick their ass this week. I'm also hoping it, but there's that.
The Bengals behind that running game make it happen. That's all I got.
I'm sticking with my slogan. Don't stand on the tracks when the train's coming through. Bengals.
Bengals by 22.
Woo! All right.
I like
Dolphins. Is that the Chargers are at home?
Yeah,
That's
Dolphins.
Chargers are at home, yeah.
And it's -3 Miami.
I think the Dolphins are too much for the Chargers. I got to go with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I don't. It's nothing against Herbert because he's still everyone's kind of giving him shit right now, or at least he's not getting talked about. He's still putting up good numbers with like Larry Curly and Mo out there at receiver. So
Yeah.
I just think the Titans, or not Titans, the Dolphins might be too much for him.
Well, I think the problem with the Chargers is their defense was so ballyhooed in the offseason. Their defense is nothing special.
That's why you don't build dream teams in free agency. It doesn't work. I don't know how Cam feels about that, but I've never
Absolutely
seen it work.
correct. Draft. Build your team, and let it develop. Always develop your team.
Is Tua playing?
I think he is.
I think so. Yeah.
He hurt his ankle at the end, but I believe he's playing.
Okay. If Tua's playing, he is playing very well. I know he kind of struggled a little bit in the last game, but he's been playing really well. I think he's leading the league in quarterback rating, if I'm not mistaken. And I think if Tua plays, I think they win it pretty easily.
Greg?
Speaking of Justin Herbert, remember when people were saying, "Oh, look, Herbert's better than Burrow. Herbert's better than Burrow." I mean, like Herbert's still having a good year, but it's like you don't hear that comparison too much anymore. And
Well, he doesn't have the receivers to put up right now. Burrow does have the receivers. I don't think anybody on the planet would argue that Herbert is not physically gifted. I mean, the guy's a freak at
he's a freak.
The thing that you can't measure with Burrow, he just has off the charts intangibles, and those are the things that don't fade.
Yeah.
You can lose your arm, you can lose a step, instincts and what defense you know how to read. Those are the last things to go.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm not going to get to our base. Mike Greenberg compared Burrow to Batman because Batman did not have the superpowers, but he beat people by outsmarting them with his mentality. Yeah.
Didn't Batman beat Superman?
Yeah, he did. Kryptonite. There you go.
We have Batman.
But I'm going Dolphins.
Cam?
Dolphins by 4.
Dolphins by 4. Okay. Well, there's one game left on here because the other two have kind of been talked about already.
Yep.
Patriots, Cardinals.
-1.5 Patriots at the Cardinals.
Patriots. Is there what Call of Duty? Is there Call of Duty on this weekend?
Oh my God. I don't know. Give me the Cardinals, man. I think at some point it's going to click. I know D-Hop's back. I think Kyler has probably plateaued in terms of where he's going to be. I just think it's a consistency issue with him. I think he's wickedly talented. I don't know if he's got the intestinal fortitude to just gut out a long season and not complain. He seems like a little bit of a whiner to me. But I still think at some point the nuke's going to go off, and I think this might be the game.
Are you saying he's plateaued at 5'9"?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking the Cardinals too. Yeah, I think like you said, I think D-Hop goes bonkers this game.
I'm gonna take the Patriots. I think Belichick will find a way to keep his team playing well enough to be in this thing all the way through at least week 17.
The only matchup I'm thinking of, Bill Belichick versus Cliff Kingsbury. That's the matchup all I need to hear. So I'm going Patriots.
All right.
Cardinals by 3.
I love the analysis.
There's a lot there.
I'm teasing.
I feel it. It's the Burger King.
That's right.
Oh gosh,
that's great.
No, but that's more or less the gamut for the show. Cam, we really do appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
No
Cam.
problem. Absolutely my pleasure.
We would love to have you back on during Red season, and hopefully there's stuff to talk about. But we do have one more question for you, or at least I do. It's a burning question that's been tearing up social media and will continue to tear up social media for the next 17 to 18 days or so. And you're in film, so I will appreciate your answer on this. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It could be a Thanksgiving movie. It could be an Easter movie. It could be a Arbor Day movie. Whatever when you watched it when you were a kid, I always associate movies to when I watched them when I was a kid. E.T. I watched around Easter time. So every time Easter rolls around, I remember E.T. It's just one of those things. So when people say it's Die Hard Christmas movie, absolutely, if you want it to be.
I hear my wife cackling in the living room. So I guess she's still watching, which is awesome because we're an hour 20 in. But no, we truly do appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you back on if you'd come back on. And she's laughing again.
No, Cam, I kind of do this to myself. I try to ask a bunch of people, and one time one Bengals fan said, Greg, why do you keep asking people the question and they give you the answer you don't want to hear? So I'm the one that starts it. I'm a big Christmas movie nerd and all that. So yeah. People are giving me heck for it. So yeah.
Hey, I'm with you in the Christmas movies. I'm a huge Christmas buff. Actually, I just put my Peanuts display outside. I hand carved the
Oh, nice.
Peanuts Christmas out in front of my house. I'm trying to win a contest in the neighborhood here, so I can give the gift card they gave me to some of the kids in the neighborhood. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm a big Christmas guy, no question.
I noticed your
Oh,
mug. Wasn't it
no,
Snoopy?
pause.
Yeah, Snoopy.
Pause. You hand carved?
Yeah, I made the so the end scene of
But it's in your front yard, so this has got
yeah.
to be moderately like
Yeah,
they're
I'll-
not like this big, you know.
No, they're it's about 3 feet high. They are. I cut them out by hand and painted them. They're homemade. I did them. This is the 10th Christmas I've had them out. Kids love them. The neighborhood loves them. It's one of those things where I'm going to do Snoopy and Charlie Brown, and then next year I'm going to do Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and a tree. And then it was Snoopy, Charlie Brown, Linus, and then the twins. And I'm getting into deep dive characters. I'm bringing Franklin into this thing. I'm bringing all these people in that weren't even in the show. So eventually, it's going to be like 20 cast members out there. So yeah, it's one of those quirky little things. I love the Peanuts Christmas. It's just such a fond memory of mine as a child. So I decided to put it together about 10 years ago. So it keeps growing and growing every year.
So you're a Peanuts fan then, huh?
Oh, fanatic. Yeah, I love Peanuts. Big Peanuts guy. Big Peanuts guy.
Hold on, my wife just asked, where is her Christmas display?
I should start making these.
It's right here, Amy.
Yeah,
We are the display. We're
Y'all-
I
gonna
just put a bow
twice
on.
a
and-
week for you.
I just put a bow on, and that's it. And I'm like, here's your present. No.
All right. Well, one thing we always like to wrap up with is we always do some charity work that we always kind of try to pump out. Every year I say every year, we've only been doing this for about a year, but we feel like we're going to keep continuing to do it. This year we give away a jersey, and Meg on Bengals Twitter won it this year. And I'm actually getting ready to call it in probably tonight or tomorrow. So hopefully she'll have that right around Christmas, believe it or not. So that'll be really cool. She told me she wants a Ken Riley jersey from, I think it's the 1981 series. So the first black ones with the orange striping. So we're going to go through Cooks and get that done for her. And, you know, it's going to be awesome. But the charity thing we're currently doing is we're doing little Bengal squares for the kind of like Super Bowl squares. We're going to do some for the Browns game this week. We'll see if we continue to do it or not. Each square is $1. There's currently, I think, about 60 squares left. We're going to do a halftime winner and an end of game winner. And we are going to split that a third, and a third. So net proceeds, 30% will go to a first place winner or first half winner. 30% will go to a whole game winner. If I don't know how
The second half winner, I guess.
Second half, I don't know.
Score is.
It's usually the final score.
Right, final score. And the other 30% is going to the Joe Burrow Food Bank. I don't know the official name of it. So, you know, if we sell all 100 squares, $30 goes to the winners and the charity. We do keep $10 of that. We don't give it to ourselves because it'd be a hell of a payday for us. We put it in our podcast account for other giveaways that we do. We do Skyline gift card giveaways, stuff like that. So we are going to be doing the squares this week. We're going to try and do it next week. And then one thing that we always encourage is to just donate to whatever charities that y'all want to donate to. If there's a special cause in Cincinnati, if there's one in Cleveland or Baltimore or Pittsburgh or wherever, donate, send us the receipt. If it's $10 or more, we put your name in the drawing for the jersey giveaway next December. So, and you know, obviously you guys are donating straight with that. We don't keep any of that money. We don't keep any money that gets donated. We just try to give everybody to give back to their community. So we are doing another jersey next year. Please donate, send us receipts, donate to causes that are specific to you. I'm not going to tell you where to donate. If you want to donate to an autism foundation, do it. You want to donate to a food bank, do it. If you've already got an automatic donation that goes to the Ken Anderson Alliance, send me the receipt. I will literally put 12 entries in there for you for next year. I just want to make sure that everything's going back to the community. And if you guys want to do the squares, just let me know and we'll buy some squares for you.
That's right.
Awesome.
And then last thing we always do is we give our certified guest, which is you, Cam, the floor to talk about anything you have coming up or anything that you want to promote.
Okay, I have a couple of projects. I'm working on 7 films right now, all currently in production. So 7, which is always fun. Never a dull moment at Chateau de Miller, where my studios are located. But the ones that are probably of most interest to Cincinnati sports fans are the Finley and Western film, which I'm working on about like I had mentioned before, the location of Crosley Field. And I'm working on a script right now for a one-man show at the Reds Hall of Fame Museum where I will be portraying a 1940 sports reporter, and I tell you the story of the 1940 world champion Cincinnati Reds. So it will be a fun night, hopefully a couple nights. We're still working out the details on that. Not sure when, probably next spring, early summer, but that'll be fun. But actually, it's basically if you think of the Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain, for all you people, and there's probably some person like who out there right now, some 17-year-old. But Hal Holbrook did a Mark Twain one-man act. So it's basically mimicking that style, but as a 1940 Cincinnati sports reporter. And I give you the lowdown on the 1940 World Series because you don't see a lot of footage of the 1940 World Series. So I thought that team deserves some attention. So that'll be a fun thing that will be coming up next year. And, of course, follow me on Twitter at Cam Miller Films, where I'm always diving into Cincinnati history. And if you got any great memories of Riverfront, please share them with me. I love talking about that grand old gal.
We'll flood your inbox with ideas. No.
Hey, nice. Please do. Please do. Absolutely.
I do have one more thing. So our friend over at Brimminghorn, I don't know if you guys saw this or not. They're doing a kind of a fundraising type thing where if we get a sack this weekend against that guy, then there's a whole bunch of people that have gotten involved on this. A lot of people are doing $10 a sack. Other people are doing $5 or whatever they feel comfortable with. But however many sacks we get, that's how much money people are going to donate to different women's charities, sexual assault victim charities, stuff like that. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because he is one of our sponsors. So I wanted to make sure that I told everybody about that on here as well.
Yeah, there's last I checked, they had like almost 200 likes of people pledging $10 a sack. Now, we don't have the best pass rush on the planet, but if there's 200 people at $10 a sack and you get 2 sacks, I'm not a mathematician, but that's a good chunk of change that'll be going to help.
Hell, I think I might suit up for this. I was a defensive back in the day, so I still got a couple plays left in me.
There we go.
Well, I'll tag you in that post, Cam, so you can.
Yeah, please do.
And like I said, we appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Anytime, guys. Anytime.
Yeah, we'll reach back out to you here. Maybe around the draft time, you can tell us about these kids the Reds are drafting.
There you go. Yeah,
I know
because the MLB draft is so exciting.
We get the amazing number 7 draft pick.
Yeah, I know. Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
All that work to pick 7th.
It's such a farce. And if you saw the clip, I posted something on Twitter about it. It was when the Pittsburgh got the first pick and they celebrated. It was like that's the first time they've celebrated in like 10 years. It's like but again, that's a guy that probably will never sniff the majors because the chances are very slim. And if he does, like in football, you have immediate impact. In baseball, you're going to tour in the minor leagues for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years, and then you have to be good, and then you have to come to Major League Baseball and produce. What are the chances that the Pirates' number 1 pick is going to produce by the year 2026? So all the hand slapping and high fiving, it doesn't make sense to me. Baseball's broken. We have to fix it.
Unless your name is Mike Leake and you are good right away.
Straight to the top. Yep, which is very, very, very rare. Yeah, but you're right. It is what it is. That's why football is such a great sport. But man, baseball, I live it, I breathe it, I die by it.
Love it.
Well, with that being said, I think I've said it 8 times. But thank you for coming on.
No problem. Anytime, guys. I appreciate it.
For Cincy James, for Cam Miller, for Greg Luther, I'm Santori Miles. This is Rally Around the Natty. Go F off, Deshaun Watson.